guys, I am Kate Avila. I am from Wilmington, North Carolina.
Hey guys, I'm Chastity Seriously. I'm from Detroit, Michigan.
And I'm Danae. I'm from Charles County, Maryland.
I'm Jadeja from Jamaica.
I'm Dion from Orlando, Florida.
So today we'll be talking about your inside truth and what we can do for unity to happen. A few of the things we'll be talking about is racism, racial division, racial issues, and unity. So to start us off, our first question is, explain systematic racism and how it is reflected today.
Good question, Kate. Do you mind if I start, guys? Good. Okay. Well, to me, systematic racism is literally, like the definition is in the term systematic racism. It's the system in which racism is trickled down to the very T. That includes government, schools, even down to housing and banks. Like, it's all down to the T of separation between white people and person of color.
Yeah, for sure. Like oftentimes when I think of racism, I always think of it as like a personal thing, like something that someone else has against another person. But when you talk about systemic racism, that thing is ginormous, and it is in every aspect in the United States. So,
Yes, I definitely agree. I feel like systematic racism is just basically a term meaning organized racism instead of how it's used between us and our peers, which is unorganized racism. So systematic racism, that can exist within justice systems, within it's an overall aspect of making racism seem like it fits into our overall society. That's what I feel like the overall goal of systematic racism is.
yeah. And it can sometimes feel kind of hopeless, because when you think of really how deep it is in society, it can sometimes feel hopeless.
Indeed.
Yeah.
There's ways around it, though.
Yeah.
In today's society, we are starting to be more aware of these things, and we're going to the, we as in just people of politics who are able to speak their minds and do such actions to accommodate to these.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that woman KJ that spoke to the panel of the police department, she spoke her mind and addressed those kind of issues. And even with Miss Maxine Waters, she's able to state her mind and be able to execute her ideas as to how systematic racism affects her and her people. So it's stuff is getting done slowly but surely, but
yeah. Not to say it hasn't existed in the past. It's just right now it's been actually brought to light, and that's why we're having such huge protests and stuff like that, because systematic racism has been a thing for a long time. Well, also people don't understand is that actual segregation did not end less than 100 years ago, right? So people haven't realized that how this world works is it's how science works in general is that things are naturally selected out, right? So if I have racism and those who were raised and brought up in hate, then it's gonna continue. And those people have not completely, I hate to say it like this, not completely died off yet.
Right.
We still have those people that exist, that have parents or grandparents that exist or that live through that hate, because racism is just hate. That's really all it is, and a prejudgment of one person or many person or a culture in general.
And I'd add ignorance to that too.
for sure.
I hate ignorance.
And I want to kind of hop into or piggyback off of what you said. It wasn't long ago that we just gotten out of the Jim Crow era. It was slavery, and then sharecropping, Jim Crow, and then now here we are in 2020. We're fresh off of that. It hasn't, like you said, been 100 years, and so those people are still in our society. And it's you have grandparents who've ingrained that into their children, who then ingrained into their children. And there are people who have these mindsets and implicit biases in areas like you were saying, in schools and healthcare and the government, and it's they're putting that into these systems, and then minorities are affected by it as a whole in so many different ways that people don't even think about. But like you said, it's coming to light, and we're now talking about it and trying to call it out and get it out of there or out of here.
Which is a step.
That's a step.
So you guys mentioned schools and homes. So where do you think racism, or at least where do you think racism starts, or where can we go to fix racism?
I like to start. We've had this conversation in the past. We brought this up because me personally, that's where I feel like the starting point of, actually the starting point to us having a better future, and to not completely ending racism, but just towards that direction, you know? It's, the schools is where it starts, because in schools, kids are being taught that white people did everything for the country. So if I'm in school, I'm a regular kid, I say I'm a white kid, I'm a kid in school, I'm learning that people of my color did everything for this country, and then I go home to a family who of course shares the same color as me, telling me that I should look at other cultures and look at other races as like a lower, like lower than I am, then of course I'm going to follow in the lead of racism, because now I'm going to start to prejudge people. I'm going to start to believe that my color is superior just because my color started where all these people stand. And I should feel more superior than others just because if Christopher Columbus found this country, then that's a man, that's a Caucasian man, but he's believed to found this country. How could you find a country that already had people on it? You know what I'm saying? How could you, we already had Native American Indians on this land. So you didn't discover this country, but you were given the credit as someone who discovered this country. We don't celebrate Juneteenth here. We celebrate Independence Day. But if you think about it and go back in history, Independence Day started where there were still slaves. You know what I'm saying? We celebrate independence because America got independence, but blacks and other minorities were not independent. You know what I'm saying? We were still owned. So that's my point, where schools, it starts in schools. If you want to break hate, it starts with the teachers actually incorporating what black people have actually done, and actually knowing that the original person on this planet was actually black, and the more people migrated from the equator, changed the amount of melanin in their skin tone, and their eye color, and all that other stuff. That's stuff that needs to be taught in schools, in my opinion.
And what you're actually speaking on is called unconscious bias, and that really does impact young kids, whether they know it or not. Of course, they don't know it, but to a black student learning about history, yes, what you were saying is just like, you know, you're seeing all these white faces, queens, kings, even just normal everyday labor. It's like, oh well, they built this country with the help of us, but not us, of us actually working as us as slaves. And during that time, that's when a lot of the black kids understand their identity at that point, whether they're light skinned or dark skinned. That's when that barrier starts, and that's when lighter skinned kids are saying, well, I would be in the house, and they're proud to say it, versus those darker skinned kids saying, well, dang, I'd be in the field, I'd be hurting, I'd be this. And that's when colorism comes in, and things of that nature is, again, how systematic racism guides. Just to, go back to that. But it definitely does start in school. More than that, it's what you were saying with as far as a white child, they're seeing themselves through history, and and they're getting this information not knowing the actual details into how their ancestors had to do very heinous acts in order to achieve a conflict. They had to do genocide in order to get America because of the Native, and then they speak about manifest destiny, and that was. You know what happened during that time. It was, well, we had to kill all the buffalo. We had to kill some of the Native American people in that time in order to get this land. And now it's our land. Like, they don't get that, and that's not what's being reciprocated in the teaching.
I think that school plays a really important part in educating people, so that they can be better people. But I think if you think about, who is your first teacher? Where do you first learn things? And that's at home, I would say. And I think that's where real change is going to start. Because even like when you learn things in school, that aren't right, you go home and you tell your parents and they'll fix that right quick. I was like, oh, no, that's not how it went. Let me tell you now. And so, yeah, I think it really starts with family, because when we talked about like racism and how it's cyclical and it keeps happening, we talked about how it's being passed down to generations. So if you want to see change, that change has to be passed down to generations in the familial aspect.
Agree.
And when speaking about the familial aspect, so I have a perfect example. So let's say I was taught something in school. Well, my mom doesn't know nothing of this history, of American history. She can tell you about her country's history, but our struggle is they'll tell you that the school is right. Though you have to celebrate Christopher Columbus because that's what the school taught you. So in my household, it was, all right, Mom, this is what they taught me. Is this correct? Yeah, of course. If that is what your school says, it's correct. Although we know that it's not.
Yeah.
Something that really excites me is this generation, where I think we're just not accepting things as is anymore. We're gonna learn things for ourselves and do our own research. And I think that's something that we'll be able to pass down to our kids if we choose to have any. So that's something that really excites me, is that we will bring the change. I think so.
Yeah, definitely.
But you have a point. Don't think of that, because now that you really bring that up, I've really had my own experiences where I've seen, just racism passed down from families. And I mean, not just like a hate. It's like people presume that racism is really just like, I hate this person because they're this color. Racism can come in, oh, this person can do this because he's black. Like how they typically put black people with being athletes. That's a form of racism. That's just, that's why we can say that every culture can be racist. Like every race can be racist. So it's just like, I've had, sorry to put like my business out there, but I had a past relationship and, she had we were happy overall, but her grandparents told her they didn't enjoy her being with me because I was black and she was white. And she ended it there. So that's why I agree with the family thing. Family does make big difference because some people are family oriented and family tied, and when they hear something from their family, it's really throw everything else out the door and just really like pay attention to what I'm being taught right now and not think that this is going to affect my life. Like, why can't be a black person? Why not ask the questions? Because you're taught to not ask questions to your parents, of course. So it's like, why not? Why can't I date a white girl? Or why can't I date a black man? Like that's the issues that family kind of teach you as well.
With just to make sure I'm clarifying right, as far as saying that black people, are pushed into being athletes and stars in general. Are you trying to not trying to say those would be examples of stereotypes to a degree? Because when we talk about commentators, they like the racism comes with the commentary. So a lot of people use this example of a white quarterback versus a black quarterback. With the white quarterback, they'll say they were smart, very strategic. They were, I don't know, just those kind of languages. Versus to a black quarterback, they'll say he was very aggressive. He was very aggressive. He was quick. He was he's an animal. He's a beast. Those kind of things and those kind of descriptive languages affect what the listener is listening to, and the demographics of sports is, males, white, black, Hispanic, like they watch it, and these are the comments that we regurgitate.
Something that stuck out to me when you said Jan was about how we can say that all races can be racist, and I'm gonna shake the room a little bit, just a little bit. So I think I would agree that all races can be prejudiced. Or stereotypical. But I think when you think of the word racism, right, to be racist, you have to hold some type of power in society. And black people do not have power in society, right? You don't have the power to be systematically racist. And so I definitely think that we can be prejudiced.
I hear what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. But what I want to say is, let's look at the definition of racism and and being prejudiced,
Uh-huh.
right? Racism is not a racism is not a verb. Let's get it. Racism, like you can't, that act of racism. Racism is the thought process, right? Racism is the thought. I know being prejudiced is actually carrying out that thought. So when I say somebody is racist, this is their thought. When I say prejudice, like somebody doing a prejudice act, that's like somebody doing, like actually carrying out their racist thought. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to walk in the store, walk in my store, and I was like, the racism comes from me thinking about what you may do. My prejudice act is me following you around because I think you might steal something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why I kind of carry that in all aspects, because I think it does, we all, in every culture, I feel like we need to do something for ourselves, for all cultures. But not to say that nothing is wrong with how we're being treated. I just feel like that's why I feel like there's hope, because I feel like there's hope that we can do something on both aspects. I'm not saying that we're wrong for feeling that we've been brutally, like, people of our culture have been brutally murdered. People of our culture have had wrongful sentences. It's ridiculous in this country. I get this. It's amazing that this has been something carried out for so long. But where I'm at is that I don't feel that. I feel like as the Black community, we need to focus on all aspects and not just one thing. You get what I'm saying? Like you said, the family. Like I'm saying, the school system, and of course the justice system. You know what I'm saying? Because we're at this point we've gotten angry to a point where it's past, but it's frustration. It's just straight up frustration, and we're tired of the racist thoughts and the prejudice acts at this point. That's where I'm at with it.
So what are some stereotypes you've experienced and how do you feel?
Look, I'll start, I guess. Some stereotypes, just as me being a woman and a Black woman at that. I'll even go deeper. As a woman, a Black woman, and a light-skinned woman, I've had some stereotypes set upon me as far as just people just automatically assume that I feel like I'm better than everyone. And I'm like, where have I given off that vibe? I do my work, I am to myself. I'm a pretty shy person if I try not to, So it's just like, I don't get where that comes from. I'm even had the stereotype to where it's like, oh, well, you should be fine, you can fit in with everybody. Wrong again. I try to widen my variety of friends. I fail for whatever reason. I don't have too many white friends. I don't have too many Hispanic friends. My friend group is Black for whatever reason. Not to be bad, like that's not bad, but it's not what I want to be, considering we're all humans in this world. But I guess the stereotype for me, in general, is just the fact that I'm very receiving and that I have a higher standard to myself than I do to others.
No, I definitely agree. Like, and especially on the light skin. I really felt that. Yeah, I heard you say, like that's actually really true in our community. Like we as light skins have definitely always been looked at like we feel like we're better than anybody. It's like I've never had that thought process. That's what kind of makes me, because I mean, just because I'm light skinned doesn't mean I haven't been through what you've been through. You know, that's one of the most aggravating thought process I've ever seen.
Now I can understand, again, the school and what we've heard about just Black people and colorism in general and where that came from. So I can understand, and I don't get frustrated, but I definitely try my best to let whoever feels that way know, or I try to even boost whoever's confidence of every person I see, of color or not. I let them know you are pretty. Your hair color, your hair type, who you reflect, you're pretty. I'm pretty. There's nothing against that. You're handsome, excuse me. All that good stuff. There should be no animosity because of what we may look like. Because especially to another Black person, we're all in the same boat for sure.
I like that. Because there's definitely a light skin privilege, and I'm glad that you
I recognize it for
Address
sure,
that.
but it's just like, I try to make sure that my dark-skinned counterparts, I guess, understand too that they have what they benefit from and what they show that I lack. Because I have insecurities too about my skin color. Like, people really cut, you're light skinned or you're really pale. Okay, I get it. And I sometimes feel quick to defend myself, like, well, no, I'm caramel. I do have a hint of brown in me. Like, it kind of hurts my feelings whether people realize it or not. So it did go both ways for sure.
One stereotype that's pretty popular for me is people like to assume that I'm mixed because of my hair. And, oops, Tess can relate to this one. And the whole premise behind it is that as a black woman, your hair cannot be beautiful if you don't got a little white in you or a little something else. And that makes me angry because I think black is just like such a wide spectrum.
A lot of people are like, they'll be like, are you, like you said, are you mixed with anything? And am I mixed with anything? Like, my great grandma was part Native American, so if anything, I'm like, it's a small percentage of me. Oh yeah, girl, that's where you get your hair from. That's it right there. It's that Native American. I can tell. And it's like, if you look at these pictures, everybody is African American. And I remember this was honestly traumatizing. I went to, so I'm from Detroit, and honestly, it's really, if I'm just being honest, it's black. There's not really anybody who's Caucasian, honestly, unless you go into the gentrified parts. So our school systems are full of black kids, full of Arabic kids, full of kids who are Hispanic. All of us are of color. So I was used to being the majority. So during high school, my parents were like, we're gonna move. We're gonna move so you can go to the suburban schools so you can get a better education because these schools, Detroit was we were bankrupt and the schools weren't that good. So I went to a school in the suburbs, and there I was really the minority. Like, I was used to being the majority, and then I was like, wow, I'm really a minority. It was like 1,300 kids, and 300 of us were black, and that was between freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. Like, I just wasn't used to that. And I had this one black, what was she, assistant principal, and I looked up to her because everybody else, the people who had power there were, they were white. And so I would go to her and I'd be like, I've got this going on, and she would always encourage me, and I felt like she could understand me. And I remember I came to her one day, and I had a braid out. I just took my braids out, and my hair is all over the place. And she was like, oh my gosh, your hair is so pretty. And she was light skinned. And she was like, can I touch it? And I was like, yeah, go ahead, you can touch it. And she was like, I just don't understand. You're dark skinned. You're supposed to have the nappy and the coily hair that's hard to brush. And it's just so loose. And I was like, I look up to you. Are you really saying this to me? I was so confused, and I don't know what it did to my self-esteem, but I just felt like I couldn't trust her. I felt like something was up, and after that I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't have this hair. No, I shouldn't have this hair. I don't understand what the big deal of my hair is. I don't get it. So I think that's a big issue, like with colorism and texturism in our community. And if we talk about like outside of my community, it didn't really have anything to do with race, but a stereotype I received. Like I said, I moved and I would tell all the kids, oh yeah, I'm from Detroit. And they'd be like, wow, that's so cool. Have you seen boarded up houses? Have you ever seen anybody get shot? And I was like, well, no, we're just people and we live our lives, but I don't know, it's just this mentality. I guess people see certain things on TV and they expect it all to be real, and it's not real.
As an immigrant, when I first came to the United States, I got a lot of questions like, do you live in tree houses? Do you have cars? Just ignorant things being asked. And again, I don't think it really has much to do with race, more just ignorance, maybe.
No, it's definitely perceptive. Like it's what the media uses, and I know that's not what our topic is right now, but it is media influence. Same way as I feel like, I don't know, because I'm not African, but I don't know if I had this conversation or if I made this conversation in my head. I'm known for that. But I think when I spoke to like someone from Africa, I think he was from Ghana, I think. And I said, like, you know, how do you see Americans on TV? And his answer was kind of similar to like what any international person would say. It was kind of like, you know, y'all are greedy, y'all are this. We're better than you to some degree of just like, and I was like, really, y'all are better? Not saying like, I didn't take it to no offense, 'cause I'm not that kind of person. But he was just like, you know, y'all are kind of just full of yourself, you're greedy, and y'all don't understand the value of a dollar, this, that. And I'm like, okay, versus like, when in elementary school or growing up in middle school, it's like, well, Africans are below the grade because of slavery, kind of thing. Y'all are not this because y'all were able to get taken up from that. Again, I'm gonna keep referring this, I'm gonna keep going back because systematic racism is the cause of all of what we think. That's why I keep going like that. But yeah, basically, it's just media influence, and I'm just, as far as the ignorant questions, and people really get offended when someone uses that word ignorant, but y'all should just really just look into a dictionary.
Yeah.
It's really like, no one is saying it to attack you, we're saying it to, because that's what the word is, I mean, you know, that's what you're doing. There's a difference between asking a question for knowledge and asking a question for your own personal kind of like, yeah, like your own personal agenda, that's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah. I always hear the stereotype of being followed around in the store, and I had never experienced that until recently, though. So I had it happen to me one time, and I was just like, I felt someone watching me, and I looked. I can see you watching. I just felt really like, I don't know, I felt naked, like, stop looking at me, I'm not gonna do anything, dang. But I experienced it once, and I know a lot of people experience that probably on the daily, so. So yeah, it was weird.
So those comments, I hear a lot of racial division. So how does racial division look like on campus?
For me, on campus, knowing like the kind, where I grew up, it's already kind of divided. I'm gonna just say northern atmosphere. So in the north, I feel, and a lot of other northerners may agree with me or disagree, but I met a lot that have agreed with me. Just saying that our form of racism is very different from southern racism. With the north, it's kind of like we understand that we're different, but they know that we're not the same, and that they'll let us in the same houses and let us in the same areas and stuff like that, but there's always that tension, always. And so on campus, I kind of always, I feel like I was at home in that matter, because it was like, I would see in the cafeteria, the one side being the black area, and then I would see another side being the white area. And even with the sporting groups, I would see kind of that division also. So I was like, oh, well, they're aware that, like, they know that they're different. But it's at the same time, it's just like, I would expect a little, well, I didn't expect too much coming from a PWI, but it's just that racial division here on campus is I feel like it's very strong, and if you can't see it, then you're not really wearing your glasses too hard, I guess.
I'll kind of go off of what you said. I agree. The racial division thing among the campus, it's like, let's be honest with each other. We go to school, we see groups. Everybody has groups, right? How often do we see groups with multiple ethnicities or multiple races in those groups? Black people hang amongst black people, white people hang amongst white people. Even with, like you said, the sports teams, we see that all the time. Like, I could walk in the cafeteria right now, and I promise you, people of the same race are going to be sitting together, and that's it. That's where I feel like we have division within this school, because I'm from Florida. Now, Florida, we are very kind of social state. Like, we definitely like mingle, kind of talk to each other. We're not like people, like if you're a group with another, you're a group passed by another group, they're going to talk to you. And I feel like with this school here, we don't, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm not guilty, because it's not like I'm going super out of the way to be like, hey, I see that, like, who's going to go, hey, I see you have no color in your group, let me jump here. Like, how do you sound? like it's like I understand, like it's something that I want to work on for myself. I could say moving forward is trying to get involved in more things, like open up to new experience. I feel like that's what's wrong, and that's what's causing the division here. People don't want to open themselves up to new experiences. You know, like I've never gone to a baseball game. Why can't I go and be like, hey, how does baseball go? Like understand stuff that I've never understood before, and I feel like that's what makes us successful people. If we can open up ourselves to new experiences and wanting to mingle, like the baseball team, I've never even interacted with them, but why can't I? You know, what's telling me I can't? What's telling me I can't? You know, and I feel like most people at this campus feel like they can't. You know, like they can't get together and actually have these conversations. Like, oh, how do you feel about like how's playing football? How does that go? Or how's playing baseball? How does that go? Why can't those different sports teams come together and like have conversations? And why can't we in our groups or our group of friends mingle with other groups, you know, other groups of friends and have like conversations? That's what I feel with the division in our school.
I think you make a very good point about the groups being interest-based. Like it's usually sports teams that sit together. And I like that idea of trying to diversify your interests. Because then when you diversify your interests, then you have some cultural diversity within the groups. But I love saying hi to white people on campus because they're so shocked. Like, they're like,
That's the problem.
It's hilarious. But and you know that's the hope that I have. I see in you, where it's just like we are going to be the generation of people
To change. Yeah.
I definitely feel like we do self-segregate. And what you said, we do it based off of our interests and stuff like that. I feel like sometimes people are kind of, I guess they want to be invited into like spaces where they feel, you know, I don't want to just impose, I want you to invite me. But then sometimes if people feel, if they don't feel comfortable, if I don't feel comfortable, I'm not going to put myself in a position of vulnerability. I'm going to stay safe, you know. But I feel like if, like you said, if we do it ourselves and we put ourselves out there, I've never thought about going to a softball game. But my friend Brianna plays softball, and she's like, you know, come out. I'm like, okay, sis, nobody out there is gonna look like you, but you know what? I'm gonna go to support you. And I went, and like, honestly, no shade, all shade intended. They're way better than the football games. So much, it's just so intense, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I started to go, you know, more frequently. And our friend group went, just I guess being open to trying new things. It just all starts with us, and I would have never known softball games were that fun until I went myself. So just being vulnerable in that moment, I was like, okay, I'm the only one out here. But the parents were actually fairly nice, and it was a good experience. So yeah, I agree with you guys.
And to like bring it to big picture, right? Say the baseball team. I think I know one black guy on the baseball team. And I don't know, you can correct me. I don't know many black boys who grew up playing baseball. And I think that can, you know, go up the ladder back to systemic racism when black people weren't allowed to be a part of the Major League Baseball. I don't know anything about sports.
No,
I'm
you're completely right. As a young black man, I was grown up to believe, as a black man, I need to play either football, basketball, or track. If I didn't do those three things, that was nobody, like, my parents never encouraged me, like, hey, why don't you try baseball? Why don't you try golf? Try golf. Like, one of the best golfers is black. Like, nobody, like, because, like, think about what his parents had to tell him. Try something different. Be good at it. Show that we can do other sports. We don't have to just serve as entertainment. And like, we don't just have to serve as entertainment for everybody and go to the typical sport that our color plays or is a part of, you know? Like, you rarely see any, and I think we had this conversation before, Kate, like, you rarely see any black people on the softball team, any black people on the baseball team. That shows you how it's actually, like, how much we still are segregated and how much is still being taught in the families. Like, play what a typical black person plays. If you don't do that, you're going to be looked down on. I'm not going to look down on anybody that played anything that they enjoy. Like, I played violin, and that was I did violin for 12 years. I was the only black kid in that violin class, but I enjoyed it. That's only because I enjoy music. So it's not about, like, why does the color of my skin have to enjoy rap music and hip hop music, you know, and stuff like that. That's also stuff that causes diversity amongst this school because, like you said, shared interests. We share interest in hip hop music. We share interest in football. as black people because that's all we're taught. So that's all we're going to be taught to have interest in and associate with those people who share that same interest. That's, yeah.
Would y'all say black sports are diverse? Like when you think of basketball and football on campus?
I think basketball is going towards the right direction. I think football on campus. I'm sorry. No, yeah, our basketball team is pretty diverse.
I know the women's basketball team.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but
Not at all.
but it was just an interesting kind of.
Yeah, I learned something. Like y'all kind of sparked my little brain a little bit.
It's interesting to think that
That's
the
what I'm saying.
traditional black sports, you know, there are white people in football team,
Facts.
there are white people in men's basketball team.
Mhm.
When you think about
the traditional.
the traditional
white
white
sports,
sports,
they say.
you have, you know, your one ticket.
You do, you got one.
I don't want to talk about that right now. I really don't.
No, I do have a question. I might play devil's advocate here.
Okay, girl. I think we're on the same
You
page.
need
No, I
it.
don't even want to be like
You need it.
bad, but like if you think about it, like it. If you go in certain neighborhoods, you know, there's a basketball court down the street, or like just an open field for people to play football. If you like certain equipment, I feel like there were price differences that could sometimes be a barrier for some people. So I know a lot of black kids, black boys that I knew played basketball and football. And I remember talking to one boy, I was like, no, you look like you play baseball. So you know it was too expensive. I couldn't do it. And then I had another friend, he said I played baseball for a certain period of time, and then he said my parents, you know, kind of wanted me to stop because it was expensive.
Wow.
So not saying that it is more expensive, you know, I don't know because I haven't looked at the prices myself, but what if there was a price barrier and I stopped, you know, certain.
And then think about why that is.
Okay.
Why is there a big?
Not trying
difference?
to say, because of course we do have to open our horizons, expand our horizons and try new things, but what if, you know, money was an issue?
You're on the.
Stopped it.
You're absolutely right.
And to keep going, and kind of knock your devil's advocate. So think about it. Me as a black man, I couldn't afford a violin. And you know how much violins cost? You know how much they cost? It's like a good rough 10,000-ish.
Ooh, for violin?
Yes, they're more expensive than you think. It's the wood. And then if you want a nice one, then like one of those shoulder rests and stuff, that's that extra money. So I had to rent one, right?
Oh.
From my high school. It was like $75 a month to rent a violin. So, and granted, it may not be 10,000 everywhere, but a couple thousand. It's about 1,000 or a couple thousand. So, it's really because, and not saying that everybody has a mentality, like not everybody can do what I do, and I can't do what everybody else do. But what made me as a black man want to do something different is because I didn't want to fall in statistics. Falling in statistics is just, like, it really has been something that's driven me as a black man, because, you know, it was like, oh, you were that child that was told you were a mistake. You were that child that was, you know, just because you're light skinned, you might not grow up where we grew up. Just because how you talk, you don't grow up where we grew up. You know, like, I think I grew up in a pretty rough place. I'd call Orlando a pretty rough place. And because people seem to want to think about Disney World and stuff like that. Like, that's not, that's only one part of Orlando. But like, if you go to my Florida people know, like Pine Hills and stuff like that, that's where I was raised. So when it comes to what I wanted to do, I actually didn't get that, like, I had determination to try this. But I was told, my parents didn't give me that, because like I said before, the parents are kind of where it starts and where you get that motivation. And they didn't give me that motivation because I was doing something that wasn't normal for my color. And so it was like, so when they told me I couldn't afford it, when you can't afford it, you rent this violin, it's like, I feel like what comes in play is like, for change to happen, we need to apply that determination we have, you know, where we can get involved in these things. So I went out and actually worked for my money. And I'm like, what, 12? I started when I was 8. I started like 9 and stuff like that. I started cutting grass, doing all this other random stuff just so I could raise money and do something different, you know? I'm tired of being told I need to play football, even though I did it anyway. I played football and do track. I did it anyway, but still it's like, I want to do something that I enjoy. So if I'm going to do something that I enjoy, and I feel like that's different, I'm going to have to use that same determination of not falling into statistics and use it towards doing something that I want to do. You know what I'm saying? That's, I don't know if that kind of like answered your question.
Yeah.
And a little bit how that goes. But yeah, that's where I fall with it.
And I definitely think like each person has their own story, you know, because there are some people who that part can really be crippling and really be demotivating.
For sure.
I think that's definitely like a true story that someone might have. And I'm saying, you know, think about why is there such a big price difference, and think about history. I don't know why, but think.
All right.
Why? You can speculate.
Yeah, all right. Question.
So you guys are having a great conversation. So it leads me to my next question that Danae will emphasize it. Is the term Black arguably a strong enough description that pushes white people and other minorities away?
Good question, Kate. So what that question means to me really is just like, is the term Black, like okay, when people use that word, just explaining, trying to describe what an event might be, what kind of culture something is, it's just like that term Black, is that what's crippling the advancement of us unifying, like being able to be on one accord in some shape, form, or fashion. I'm gonna use the example that I always use at Wesleyan. Like at our school, we had a dance, and the Black Student Association was the sponsor for it. And it was really maybe about 15, 20 people, and maybe about 100% were Black. Maybe like a few other like white people came, but they were part of BSA. But then that next following weekend, the international students had their masquerade ball, and like it was a whole party. And that was before Corona. So. But it was kind of like, it kind of hurt my feelings and a lot of other members at that time, because it was just like, we worked just as hard, or we wanted everyone to come as well. And so my thing, I guess, is that word Black enough to kind of make people think, well, only them, because of what it is. And I feel like just that labeling in general is just, I never liked labels at all as a child, now, ever. So when I always try to eliminate trying to make one group or an event a cultural one, I guess. I'm trying to make, I think all this is just it's bad. But
It's making sense.
it is, okay, good. So, and even with our phrase Black Lives Matter, a lot of people say, well, maybe it's not the word like lives matter, it's maybe just the word Black. That's making people kind of like, oh, heck no. But that's another conversation, I guess. But I feel personally that if we should not have to label it, our interactions, as who is going to be there or what the emotion is going to be on. If we want to talk about issues, let it be about issues, and if there are Black people in there, okay. And because I feel like even with this panel, not disregarding this one or anything, but like we had one white person or something like that, I feel like we kind of a little productive, but it's more because we get to see both sides. That's all.
So to add to that, I experienced that a lot being a part of the Black Student Association. Like it'll come from international students, from my friends. They'll be like, so you're in the Black Student Association, but you're not Black. Like, what are you doing in there? And I was like, the whole point of the Black Student Association is not just for Black students. It's to create an environment for everybody, you know, hosted by the Black Students Association. So I think it also takes a lot of educating yourself. So I know one international student, wow, she was amazing. She came up to me and she was like, you don't have to answer this, but I am really interested to know, why are you in the Black Student Association? Like, are you dating someone in there? Are you part Black? Like, what are you doing in there? And I had to tell her, well, this is an environment that isn't just for Black students. Like, I'm in there because I care about the Black students. I mean, you know, they're my friends. And also, I feel like I can connect with them. You know, we are all going through the same struggles. You know, we're all getting our fingers pointed in. But it feels good to be in an environment where we can all share it without saying, all right, you know, you can't understand this, you know? So yeah.
I think labeling something as Black can be seen as like an indication that this is a safe space for Black people. And I think that's something that isn't seen often. And I think sometimes it's nice to see, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into, and I'll be happy here, and I feel safe here. I think that's something. I I don't know.
You're saying it's, the word black isn't really for them, it's really for us.
It could be. You could
Okay.
take it as that.
Mhm.
You could look at it as like, maybe, you know, for the same reason it would feel safe for us and we would feel at home. It could be the opposite for other people.
Mhm.
Like they know like what type of music will be
Mhm.
played.
Mhm.
And so like, oh, I won't go there. So I don't.
I mean, I just don't understand the difference between them listening to that or to hip hop or any other R&B music by themselves versus them with the actual people who kind of already do such.
I seen this thing on Twitter and I was like, okay, that makes sense. It was like whenever somebody hears or sees pro-black, they automatically think anti-white or anti-everything else off the basis that when you see like alt-right people or like really conservatives who are with the pro-white, it's anti-black and anti-everything else. Well, really, it's not that. Well, really, it's just us trying to advocate for ourselves and create safe spaces for us. I definitely feel like Jay was saying, like that black is necessary. Like if nobody's going to advocate for certain students or specifically black students, then black students need to, you know, have that space for themselves and then, you know, be loud and proud about it to have other students, other black students say, oh, this is a safe space for me. And then like you said, Kate, like you don't have to be black, but if you know, if you're an ally, you should be like, okay, you know, I'm gonna, not you should, but like, you're like, these are my friends and I agree with what they're standing for, so I'm gonna just be a part of it. I don't think black should be people being like, I'm just gonna run away, because I feel like them running away is them running away from something, or like I don't wanna deal with that, or I don't wanna have this conversation, I don't wanna be uncomfortable. So I feel like having that black pair is necessary, but I understand what you mean about it turning people away because people don't wanna deal with certain things, or hear certain things, or feel like they're wrong in a certain sense. They're just like comfortable with where they are.
You did that perfectly.
Yeah.
I agree with your definition. Thank you.
And specifically for your party example, like, I think if we saw people who came into the event and we would ask, you know, I think we were pretty accommodating. I think we can play different types of
Of
music.
course.
We always do that. So, you know, if there's a camera somewhere and someone happens to be watching, you know, come on out. You can play what you like. Okay, I promise. But I have a question for you, Danae.
Oh, yeah.
So, if the party was packed,
Mhm.
ours, I don't really remember.
Like
which
Student
one.
Association.
The Ebony Ball.
The
The Ebony Ball.
Yeah.
But it was only black people. Would you still have an issue?
No, I mean, not at all. I wouldn't, because again, with what the Ebony Ball was about, or even just who, like I said, who the not targeted audience was, but just knowing who is who's influencing the party, who's hosting the party, who's managing the party. It's like, oh, well, it's other black people too. Well, like, all right, that's me. I know what's going. I know what's going to be expected. I know I'm gonna hear the cha-cha slide in there. I know I'm about to be dancing. I know there might even be some food in there if we're lucky. You know what I mean? But then it's just like that's the comforting part. It's just always sucks again because, like I said earlier, it's like I want to expand my horizon, but I can't. And so I would hope that in a space like that, especially PWIs, how you go to HBCU, it's just like you would expect somebody to kind of wander in there and just be like, yay, like, you know, I mean, I just don't like appropriation. That's where my whole kind of stigma is to where it's just like, well, I know they're listening to our music and I know they're trying to, you feel me, but you're not here with us, at least getting to understand, like, you're not even trying to be experts on anything. Okay.
I think in those type of events, it takes a lot of inviting. So come here, like directly to the person. Remember when we were volunteering and you guys were showing us how to do your dance, so the cha-cha slide and electric slide. We were just going to stand there while you guys danced, but you guys invited us and showed us your dance moves, like exactly how to do it. I remember Maisha, she was helping us so much. So, and it was different races. It was myself and it was a girl from the Philippines. So, you know, it takes a lot of inviting, a lot of, hey, you know, you should come, different, you know, to enjoy the moment. It's not just for us, it's for everybody.
And Kate killed it.
So what are some thoughts that what could be done to better the division?
First is taking the first step. That's, I think, the first step being, we gotta start learning to integrate and showing that we need unity, because that's what's wrong right now. That's what's wrong when it comes to this country, and especially with everything going in politics, and that's another story, that's another conversation. But the unity in America and other countries are seeing it, and they're seeing us break apart as a country. Although we always wanted to be that country that advocated we are one nation under God, as we all say in our Pledge of Allegiance. But we've not been, and today, now being almost as worse as ever. Other than like, slavery and segregating, but now being as worse than compared to back then. It's like we're continuing to divide, and the division is getting terrible, and we choose. It's like it's scaring us to want to associate with others who are not like us, and that's I feel like that's one of the main issues that we need to work on when it comes to bringing back unity within at least within our country, because you got to start small and work your way out. You feel me? That's always been my view. Start small, start in your neighborhood, start in your school, start in these different friend groups, start in your sports team, and then work your way out. Like, I'm gonna start here now, and then we're gonna make sure we expand this knowledge to those who don't understand. You know what I'm saying? That's why BSA, not to be like a bandwagon or anything, but BSA is an amazing organization that came together because they're trying to shine the light on everything, on our, like, how we as minorities, what we experience as minorities, you know? Like, from everything they post, I'm always looking at their stories, their Instagram posts, what they're doing. Like when you guys did Soul Food Night, you know, it was that was great, you know, because people came out that were black, you know what I'm saying? And people came out and experienced what we experience in our black homes, you know, like the soul food we experience, and that's just, I love stuff like that. I love stuff where people we get to have different experiences in other people's shoes, you know, like what we get, you know, welcome everybody into it. Why not, you know? Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah, so, and speaking of social injustice, what exactly does the Black Lives Matter movement want on campus? So how do we see that working on campus?
I'm just be honest, I don't see it. I'm not even gonna even try to think on that. I just don't see it, and it's not that it's not because they're not waving the flag or anything. It's none of that. It's just the fact that student wise, we can do what Devin? Dion was saying, what Dion was saying, just stepping outside our comfort zone, you know, inviting, all that good jazz. But then if it's not being reciprocated to the higher levels, then I feel it's not even, they don't, like, it's not really what they care about. And yes, they may have other focuses, but I would also want to believe that their focuses are on the student body as well. And if they, even in this time period, I am going to give some credit on President Duff. He has been doing his part as far as making sure everyone is feeling included and promoting all kinds of clubs and all sorts of that nature. Even did the little, was it Pink That Rock thing and stuff like that. He allowed BSA to do the Breonna Taylor balloon release and just have us come together with all different colors and genders and stuff like that, come together and just be one. But when it comes to just socially, I don't really see it that much, or I don't feel it, I guess.
Please repeat the question. So, what exactly does the Black Lives Matter movement want on campus? That's what you said.
I think I've been seeing a lot of pretty things, like the rock and the release. I would like to see some more representation, so like people I can look up to on campus who are black, professors, black people with doctorate degrees who are influencing the next generation. I want to see that. I think I've had like 3 black teachers since I've been here, and I'm a senior. So that's something I want to see. Yeah.
I want to see people that normally wouldn't want to be, that normally wouldn't feel comfortable in spaces or like this right here. I would want them to be able to do that. I would want the school to kind of promote that. If we hear comments and they're negative from people who are white or anything like that, and they are showing, you know, being rude to people of color, those need to be, I would want those kind of people to be put into rooms, classrooms, and I would want even like those kind of seminars to be made for those people to not because they're being bad or because, you know, it's because this is the life that we're living in. It's that time is over. Y'all should not be thinking that way. Y'all should not be talking that way. If you do not have your, if you're not able to keep your mouth hush hush because you want to be rude, then that's from you. But I would want some type of actual discipline to be applied to those who do wrongdoings.
I feel that the Black Lives Matter movement, I feel like what they would want to see on our campus is what they're fighting for. They're fighting for making sure that justice is equal among all cultures. So, you know, if somebody's getting in trouble for the same thing somebody did before, but only got, you know, what kind of punishments they give out there? Community service, but this person got suspended, then somebody needs to stand up for it. That's exactly what they'll want to see, which is honestly why myself, and Kate decided to join honor board. This is because we want to make sure that that's things that are happening, you know? Like, I'm not going to see a black man or any minority in front of me and they give him expulsion compared to somebody we have a week later who comes and sits in front of me and they give him a slap on the wrist, like, oh, $200 fine, or make sure you do 2 hours of community service. No, that's something that the Black Lives Matter movement is fighting for right now. So, like I said, everybody needs to do their part when it comes to what they're fighting for. Like I said, and this is what my part, I decided to join the honor board and to make sure that that's being done on campus.
That's a great point.
I like that. Very good.
We do be fighting for that.
We be fighting.
Thank you.
So this is just because it does happen on campus, and we see it on campus, we see it on TV. But one example or one scenario that happened on campus was this black student was walking by himself, and 2 white men were sitting behind him, and they started saying nonsense. So they were saying, basically ridiculing the Black Lives Matter movement. So they started saying, what is that movement called? The Bud Light Matters movement? It starts with a B, the demographic disease, something around there. And so it was me who experienced it, and I was in uniform. So when you are in uniform, you can't do anything that you want to stand up for. So you cannot speak about the president, about, hey, you shouldn't be saying that, nothing, because it'll go back to you, and then you'll be in trouble. So how does someone react to that? And what would you have done? Let's say you're not in uniform, you're just a regular person walking. Yeah, what would you have done? Or what would be your reaction if you were to see that?
Oof. Look, okay, so for me, and I'm gonna be very, very honest, because now I've heard a lot of things. I usually I just zone that out for one. But as me being a woman, and I see some white men anyway, I probably wouldn't even step to them. Like, I know because of my own prejudices that I made in my head about white men or whatever. But it's just that I wouldn't even say nothing to them just because of the fact that, like, okay, well, what they're saying is wrong. But that's what they've grown up. That's why I would tell myself that's what they've grown up to believe. That's what their parents are telling them. That's what they see on TV. That's what they want to accept. And if that's what they want to do, then that's on those white men, not me. As long as they don't say it to my face. Now, if they wasn't say something like that in any manner to my face, I would just avoid it. For one, because I do not want to I don't want to hit nobody. Because one, they're men and I'm a female. I wouldn't want to do that. I would not set myself up like that. 2, I wouldn't even know who to go to if I wanted to address that. Because I know nothing would be done. They would say, well, they were just talking. They just, that's if you heard it, you can't, like, what's the punishment to someone like that? Or if they do something, did y'all say that? No, I didn't say it, or blah, 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 she must have misheard me. It would no action being done. That's what I believe the result would have been if it was me. That would have been my answer, my solution if I would have heard it too. Like if I heard it, it's kind of one of those situations. Those are the kind of stuff that as a minority you hear all the time. And it's just like, You don't want, as a black person, for me, I don't want to just start I don't want to start nothing. Because obviously they want to start something, but I can't react to them because then I'm going into what they think of me kind of stuff. So.
For me, I think it would have depended on the mood I was in. I think if I was already having a bad day, I would have just gotten even more upset and just left it alone. I think if I was in a good mood, I'd have been like, black, it's black, black lives matter. Would you like to talk about it? We can do that. We can have lunch. I think humor is such.
You would do that.
I think you would do that.
I think humor really, like, it breaks the ice. And, I would address it if I was in a good mood. Yeah. But I understand, it might be, you never know. You really never know what you're going into, like, in that type of situation. And it can be scary. It can be scary.
I think when piggyback off of what Danae said, like growing up in the North, we get all these stereotypes about the South and like how they take like girls and boys and like take off the back roads and like do all sorts of things. Not saying that's something that would happen today, which I feel like it still could. This is just what's been ingrained in me, and like having to watch certain movies over and over again, and just hearing this from my mom and my grandma. It's kind of like, okay, like Danae said, I'm a woman, they're men. Let me just stay over here. But I know me, the type of person I am. I care. Well, I'm not saying that you don't.
Oh,
but
right.
like, I would go to the person, like the black. You said a black man. He was a boy.
He was a student.
A student. I would go to him personally and be like, you know, if you need anybody to talk to, I'm here. I'm on your side. Don't listen to them. It's just ignorance. Like I would have had that conversation with him myself. I'm not a confrontational person either, so I would have been like, okay, they're ignorant. But I would have went to the person directly, the black boy or the black student. And been like, you know what, join BSA. We actually love you. We love you. Don't worry about what they got to say. That's probably how I would have handled it. Not even gonna lie. I don't like confrontation.
So, guys, as we wrap it up, how do we move on from this?
So I feel like we're going in the right direction, like we said earlier in this conversation. We're doing our parts, and I feel like all minorities in general, and anyone who isn't a minority, can all do their parts in making sure that we continue to go towards the right direction. How Coach Thompson incorporated the community walk so that we can we can all come together, or everyone can come together and kind of understand each other, and it could spark conversations, amongst each other during the walk. So, like you can maybe hang out with somebody that's from a baseball team or part of some other group that's not yours. Like everything we really want, and we have to start making sure that stuff like that is done outside of our school and our community.
Yeah. All right, guys, that will be the ending of this discussion panel. Thank you for joining us, and hope to work with you guys again soon.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yay.